The stars were cold and indifferent when the Crithian sovereignty discovered Earth. Their ships moved through the darkness of space like predators who had never known fear. For 300 cycles, the Crithians had conquered world after world. They had crushed 47 different civilizations under their boots. They were the masters of war, the bringers of order, and they had never lost a battle. Commander Jothic stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Blade. His silver armor gleamed under the harsh lights. His 4 eyes studied the blue planet on the viewing screen. Earth, a small world, unremarkable in almost every way. The third planet from an average yellow star in an unimportant corner of the galaxy. What do we know about them? Jothic asked his intelligence officer. The officer touched his data pad. The species calls themselves humans. They achieved faster-than-light travel only 10 cycles ago. They have not left their home system. Their technology is primitive. Basic fusion drives, crude energy weapons, simple defensive platforms. Jothic clicked his mandibles together. This was the sound Crithians made when they found something amusing. And their military capabilities? Interesting, Commander. The officer pulled up more data. They are divided into nearly 200 separate nations. Each nation maintains its own military. They spend more time fighting each other than developing space technology. In the last 100 cycles alone, they have fought 2 massive global wars. Millions of their own kind died. The bridge crew made clicking sounds. They all found this funny. A species that fought itself? How could such creatures ever stand against a real military power? They are primitives, said the tactical officer. Barbarians who barely understand the stars. They will surrender when they see our ships. If they do not, we will destroy them in hours. Jothic watched the blue planet spin slowly on the screen. He had seen many worlds fall. This would be no different. The humans were soft. They fought among themselves like children. They had never faced a real threat from the stars. They would break quickly. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. 50 ships. That is more than enough for this task. Commander, the intelligence officer spoke again. Should we not send more ships? The humans have thousands of nuclear weapons. They have orbital defense platforms around their planet. Jothic made the clicking sound again. Nuclear weapons? Those ancient tools? Our shields can handle 1,000 of their primitive explosives. And their defense platforms are toys. We have crushed species far more advanced than these humans. Trust me, officer. This will be the easiest conquest in our history. The fleet moved into Earth's solar system 3 days later. They did not hide their approach. Why should they? They wanted the humans to see them coming. They wanted the humans to feel fear before the end came. The Crithian ships were massive. Each one was 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons and thick armor plating. They moved in perfect formation, a demonstration of military precision that the divided humans could never match. 50 warships that could destroy continents. When they reached Earth's orbit, Jothic sent his message. It was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every human language. Simple words for simple creatures. People of Earth. You have been discovered by the Crithian sovereignty. Your planet is now our property. You have 72 hours to surrender. Disable your weapons. Prepare for occupation. If you resist, you will be exterminated. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. You have 72 hours. On Earth, panic spread like fire. News channels showed the alien ships hanging in orbit. They looked like dark metal moons against the stars. People filled the streets of every major city. Some prayed. Some rioted. Some simply stood and stared at the sky, unable to believe what was happening. The United Nations called an emergency session. For the first time in history, every nation sent representatives. Old enemies sat at the same table. The President of the United States spoke with the Premier of China. The leaders of India and Pakistan shook hands. Nations that had been at war for decades agreed to a ceasefire. Something was happening that the Crithians did not expect. Humanity was not fracturing under pressure. They were uniting. We cannot surrender, said General Sarah Hayes, the commander of the American Space Force. If we surrender, we become slaves. Our children become slaves. Everything we have built will be destroyed. But we cannot win, said a Russian admiral. Their technology is superior. Their ships are stronger. Our weapons are too weak. Then we buy time, said the Chinese general. We fight. We make them work for every inch. And while we fight, maybe we find a way. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not surrender. The message was sent back to the Crithian fleet. Just 2 words. Come and take it. On the bridge of the Eternal Blade, Jothic read the message. He clicked his mandibles, but this time it was not amusement. It was contempt, fools, he said. They choose death, very well. Show them what happens when primitives defy the sovereignty. The Crithian fleet moved closer to Earth, their weapons powered up. Target locks appeared on every human orbital installation, the International Space Station, research platforms, military satellites, early warning systems. Everything humanity had built in space was about to die. Fire, Jothic commanded. Beams of energy lanced through space. The International Space Station exploded in silence, metal and plastic scattering into the void. Defense satellites were torn apart. Communication relays went dark. In less than 5 minutes, humanity lost half of their orbital infrastructure. But humanity did not surrender. They could not surrender. There was nowhere to run. This was their only home. Every ship humanity had built was launched. Military vessels from every nation left their docks and climbed toward the stars. American destroyers, Russian cruisers, Chinese carriers, European frigates, ships that had been built to fight each other now flew together. One fleet, one mission. They knew they could not win. But they could slow the enemy down. They could buy Earth more time. Commander Chen Wei led the first wave. Her destroyer, the Shanghai, was small compared to the Crithian ships, but she did not hesitate. She aimed her ship at the nearest enemy vessel and opened fire. Nuclear missiles streaked through space. Railguns fired metal slugs at a fraction of the speed of light. Laser batteries burned against alien shields. The human fleet threw everything they had at the invaders. The Crithian shields held. Their weapons fired back. Human ships exploded one after another. But Commander Chen did not stop. She pushed her ship closer and closer to the enemy. All power to forward weapons, she ordered. Divert life support if you have to. I want every weapon firing. Her crew did not question the order. They knew what she was planning. They knew none of them would survive. The Shanghai rammed into the Crithian cruiser at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from Earth. Commander Chen and her entire crew of 300 died instantly, but the Crithian cruiser was crippled. Its shields had failed at the moment of impact. The explosion tore through its armor. It began to drift, lifeless, through space. On the Eternal Blade, Jothic watched in surprise. These humans had actually damaged one of his ships. Not destroyed it, but damaged it. That had not happened in his last 10 conquests. They fight like animals, said his tactical officer. They sacrifice themselves without thought. It is wasteful. It is illogical. It is desperation, Jothic replied. They know they cannot win, so they lash out. Like wounded prey. This changes nothing. Continue the attack. The battle continued for 2 days. The human fleet was destroyed piece by piece. But every ship fought until its last weapon failed. Every captain made the enemy pay in blood. By the end, 80% of Earth's orbital defense was gone. But the Crithians had lost 1 cruiser, and 2 smaller vessels had sustained damage. Jothic was mildly impressed, but still dismissive. Rodents with claws, he thought. Dangerous in the moment of their death, but still just rodents. Prepare landing forces, he ordered. We will take their major cities. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo. Once their centers of power fall, the rest will surrender. The landing began. Crithian dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. They landed in the hearts of the greatest human cities. Soldiers in powered armor marched through the streets. Tanks that could level buildings moved through downtown areas. Humanity had lost the battle in space. Now the war would be fought on the ground. But the Crithians would soon learn something important about humans. Something they should have learned from studying human history. Something that would change everything. Humans were very, very good at war. They had been practicing for 10,000 years. The Crithian soldiers moved through the ruined streets of New York City. Their heavy boots crushed abandoned cars. Their sensors scanned every building, every alley, every shadow. They expected to find frightened civilians. They expected surrender. They found something else entirely. The first attack came from a subway entrance. A rocket-propelled grenade struck a Crithian tank from behind. The explosion damaged its rear armor. Before the tank could turn, more rockets came from different directions. The tank exploded and its crew died inside. The Crithian soldiers took cover. They returned fire, their energy weapons turning concrete to dust. But the humans were already gone. They had fired and retreated into the underground tunnels. The subway system, The sewers. Places the Crithians could not easily follow. This pattern repeated across every occupied city. In London, human fighters used the underground to move unseen beneath the streets. In Beijing, resistance cells struck from the ancient tunnel networks below the city. In Moscow, snipers fired from apartment buildings and disappeared before the Crithians could respond. Jothik watched the reports with growing frustration. His forces controlled the streets, but they could not control the shadows. The humans refused to stand and fight. They hit and ran, struck and vanished. It was not honorable warfare. It was not the combat of civilized species. How many soldiers have we lost? He demanded. 300 in the last 12 hours, Commander. His tactical officer reported. The humans are using guerrilla tactics. They do not engage our main forces. They target supply convoys, isolated patrols, communication stations. Guerrilla tactics. Jothik repeated the word with disgust. The warfare of cowards. Send more troops. Increase patrols. Execute any human found with a weapon. But the orders did not help. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Every time the Crithians moved soldiers to one area, attacks happened somewhere else. It was like fighting ghosts. In São Paulo, a young woman named Maria Santos led a resistance cell of 40 fighters. They were students, teachers, engineers, and shopkeepers. None of them had been soldiers before the invasion, but they learned quickly. Maria's cell operated from the favelas, the dense neighborhoods that covered the hillsides. The Crithians could not use their heavy weapons there without killing thousands of civilians, and in the narrow streets their advantages in technology mattered less. We need to send them a message, Maria said to her team. We need to show them that we are not afraid, that we will never stop fighting. What kind of message? Asked Carlos, a former police officer who now served as her second-in-command. The Crithians have a command post in the old government building. 20 soldiers, maybe more. If we can take it, if we can broadcast what we do, it will inspire others. That is suicide, Carlos said. We cannot fight 20 Crithian soldiers in a fortified position. Maria smiled. We do not fight them. We outsmart them. The plan was simple but dangerous. Half of Maria's team would create a diversion on the north side of the building. When the Crithians responded, Maria and the other half would enter from the south through the old maintenance tunnels. The attack began at dawn. Explosions rocked the north side of the building. The Crithian soldiers rushed to defend. They thought it was another hit-and-run attack. They were wrong. Maria and her team emerged inside the command post. They moved quickly through the corridors. The Crithians had not expected an attack from inside their own perimeter. The resistance fighters caught them by surprise. The fighting was brutal and close. In the narrow hallways, the Crithians' energy weapons were too powerful. They went through walls and created dangerous ricochets. The humans used smaller weapons, pistols, knives, and improvised explosives. They fought like demons. Maria personally shot the Crithian commander. She took his communication device and activated it. Every Crithian soldier in the city would hear what she said next. This is Maria Santos of the São Paulo resistance. You came to our world thinking we were weak. You thought we would break. You were wrong. We are 7 billion people. We will fight you in every city, on every street, in every home. We will never surrender. We will never stop. And one day we will drive you from our world. This is our promise. This is our warning. The message was recorded and broadcast across every human network still operating. Within hours, everyone on Earth had heard it. Resistance movements in other cities took inspiration from Maria's words. They increased their attacks. The Crithian occupation was becoming a nightmare. But while Earth fought and bled, something else was happening in the outer solar system. Something the Crithians knew nothing about. Something that would change everything. Beyond Neptune, hidden in the darkness of deep space, Admiral Marcus Cata stood on the bridge of the command station Sentinel. He was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had spent his entire life in the military. He understood war better than most people understood peace. Around him, the largest military project in human history neared completion. The Exodus fleet, 200 warships built in secret over 3 years. Hidden shipyards on Mars and the asteroid belt on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Humanity had prepared for this day. Status report, Cata ordered. All ships are operational, Admiral, said Commander Liu, his second-in-command. Weapon systems are charged. Engines are ready. The fleet can launch in 12 hours. Make it 6 hours, Cata said. Earth needs us now. The Exodus Protocol had been created by military planners who understood a simple truth. Humanity's first contact with aliens might be hostile, and if it was, humanity needed to be ready. Not with hopes and dreams, but with weapons and warships. For 3 years, the best scientists and engineers from every nation had worked on this project. They had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. Crashed probes, ancient artifacts, signals from deep space. They had learned. They had built. And now they were ready. The ships of the Exodus fleet were not as advanced as Crithian vessels, but they were not primitive either. They had shields reverse-engineered from alien technology. They had quantum disruption torpedoes that could tear through energy barriers. They had railguns that could fire metal slugs at near light speed. And most importantly, they had human tactics. "Admiral," said the communication officer. "Message from Earth. It is from General Hayes." Kata read the message in silence. The situation on Earth was desperate. The Resistance was fighting bravely, but they could not hold forever. The Crithians were preparing for a final assault. They planned to start bombing major cities if humanity did not surrender within 72 hours. "Send a reply," Kata said. "Tell them to hold for 72 more hours. Tell them the cavalry is coming." The message was sent through encrypted channels. Only the highest levels of Earth's government knew about the Exodus fleet. If the Crithians discovered it too soon, they might send reinforcements. Surprise was humanity's greatest weapon. "All hands prepare for departure," Kata announced across the fleet. "This is not a drill. This is not an exercise. In 6 hours we jump to Earth. We are going home. And when we arrive, we show these invaders what happens when they threaten humanity." Across 200 warships, thousands of crew members moved to their stations. Fighter pilots climbed into their cockpits. Gunners checked their weapons. Engineers confirmed engine status. Marines loaded ammunition and sharpened their blades. They were soldiers from every nation on Earth, Americans and Russians, Chinese and Europeans, Africans and South Americans, people who spoke different languages and prayed to different gods. But they all wore the same uniform now. They all served the same flag, the flag of humanity. On Earth, the Resistance continued to fight. Every hour they bought was an hour closer to salvation. Maria Santos and her team struck another Crithian convoy. In Tokyo, a group of hackers broke into the alien communication network and filled it with noise. In London, engineers sabotaged a Crithian landing pad, destroying 3 drop ships. Jothik was furious. These humans were like insects. You could step on one and 10 more appeared. They had no honor. They had no discipline. But they had something else. They had determination. They had courage. And they had numbers. "Enough," he declared. "Send the order to all ground forces. Pull back to the landing zones. We will bombard the cities from orbit. If they will not surrender, we will destroy their civilization completely. In 72 hours, Earth will be a graveyard." The Crithian ground forces began to withdraw. The Resistance fighters celebrated small victories. They had driven the invaders out of the cities. But everyone knew it was temporary. The real assault was coming from above, and there was no way to stop it. In the command centers of Earth's governments, leaders watched the countdown. 72 hours until orbital bombardment. 72 hours until the end of human civilization. But they had received Admiral Kata's message. They knew help was coming. They just hoped it would arrive in time. In the cold darkness beyond Neptune, the Exodus fleet prepared to jump. 200 warships powered their faster-than-light drives. It was the largest military operation in human history. Everything humanity had built, everything they had learned, everything they had sacrificed was about to be tested. Admiral Kata stood on his bridge and looked at the faces of his crew. They were young and old, men and women. The 72-hour deadline approached like a storm. On Earth, people prepared for the end. They said goodbye to their loved ones. They gathered in churches, temples, and mosques. Some prayed. Some simply held each other. Everyone knew what was coming. Commander Jothik stood on the bridge of the Eternal Blade. His fleet was in position above Earth. Every weapon was charged. Every target was locked. In minutes, he would give the order. Humanity's cities would burn. Their civilization would be reduced to ash. "Weapons ready, Commander," said his tactical officer. "Begin the countdown," Jothik ordered. 5 minutes until bombardment. The bridge crew worked in silence. This was the final stage. After this, Earth would never threaten anyone again. The humans would be broken, scattered, and enslaved. Another world would fall to the Crithian sovereignty. But then something happened that changed everything. Every alarm on every Crithian ship began to scream at once. The sensor officer stared at his display in disbelief. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. Commander, multiple contacts. Massive fleet signature at the edge of the system. Jothic spun toward the main display. What, that is impossible. Show me. The display changed. The sensor officer was right. There were hundreds of signatures, ships, many ships. More ships than intelligence had said the humans possessed. How many? Jothic demanded, counting. 200 contacts, Commander. All warship class. They are moving toward Earth at high speed. 200 warships. Jothic felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. Not for his own life, but fear that he had made a terrible mistake. Where had these ships come from? How had humanity built them? Why had intelligence not known? All ships battle formation, he ordered. Recall all ground forces immediately. We are under attack. The Exodus fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's gravity well. 200 warships arranged in perfect military formation. They flew the united banner of Earth. A blue planet on a black field surrounded by stars. On the bridge of his flagship, the carrier Defiance, Admiral Marcus Kata looked at the tactical display. The Crithian fleet was scrambling to respond. Good. They were confused. They were scared. That gave humanity an advantage. Open all channels, Kata ordered. I want every Crithian ship to hear this. The communication officer nodded. All channels open, Admiral. Kata spoke clearly and calmly. His words were translated automatically into the Crithian language. This is Admiral Marcus Kata of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You came to our home. You attacked our people. You destroyed our stations and killed our civilians. You thought we were weak. You thought we would break. Big mistake. On the Eternal Blade, Jothic listened to the message. The human's voice was cold and hard. This was not the voice of a primitive. This was not the voice of a defeated species. This was the voice of a warrior who had come to fight. Impossible, whispered the intelligence officer. They could not have built this fleet. We monitored their entire system. We saw no construction. Obviously, we did not monitor well enough, Jothic replied. His voice was bitter. He had underestimated these humans. He had been so certain of their weakness that he never looked for their strength. What are your orders, Commander? Jothic stared at the display. His fleet numbered 50 ships. The humans had 200. But Crithian technology was superior. Their shields were stronger. Their weapons hit harder. Numbers were not everything in space combat. We fight, he said. We are Crithians. We do not flee from primitives. All ships engage the enemy. Show them the price of defying the sovereignty. The Crithian fleet moved to intercept. They formed their traditional battle formation. A solid wall of ships designed to absorb enemy fire while their superior weapons tore the enemy apart. It was a formation that had won 100 battles across the galaxy. Admiral Kata watched the Crithian formation and smiled. They were fighting by the book. They were using standard military doctrine. That was their mistake. Humans did not have a book. Humans had 10,000 years of warfare to draw from. Battle Group Alpha, Commander Liu, you have command. Kata ordered. Execute Pattern Hannibal. Commander Liu smiled. Pattern Hannibal, named after an ancient human general who had destroyed a Roman army at the Battle of Cannae. A double envelopment. A pincer movement. The oldest trick in human warfare. The human fleet split into 3 groups. The center group moved forward slowly as if they were weak. The Crithians took the bait. They focused their fire on the center, trying to break through, but the left and right groups accelerated. They curved around the Crithian flanks. Before Jothic realized what was happening, the human ships were attacking from 3 directions at once. They are using an envelopment tactic, his tactical officer shouted. Reforming would take too long. We cannot. The first wave of human weapons struck. Missiles, railgun rounds, and laser fire hammered the Crithian ships from multiple angles. The Crithian shields held, but they were designed to protect against attacks from one direction. Being hit from 3 directions at once was different, and then the quantum disruption torpedoes hit. These were humanity's secret weapon, reverse-engineered from alien technology and improved by human scientists. They did not explode on impact. They created a quantum field that disrupted the molecular bonds of whatever they touched. The first Krithian heavy cruiser to be hit simply came apart. Its shields failed. Its hull dissolved. The ship broke into pieces that drifted through space. Jothik watched in horror. What was that? What weapon was that? Nobody on his bridge had an answer. The humans were supposed to have primitive weapons. Nuclear missiles. Simple lasers, not this. Not weapons that could tear apart a heavy cruiser in seconds. All ships of scatter formation, Jothik ordered. Do not let them surround us. But the human fleet anticipated this. Battle Group Beta, led by Commander Sarah Hayes, moved to cut off the Krithian escape routes. Hayes had studied every battle the Krithians had ever fought. She knew their tactics. She knew how they would respond. And she was ready. Launch fighters, she ordered. Swarm their capital ships. Make them choose between anti-fighter defense and anti-ship weapons. Human fighter squadrons poured from the carriers, small fast ships that moved like angry wasps. They were too small for the Krithians' main weapons to target effectively. But they carried missiles and torpedoes that could damage the larger ships. The Krithians were forced to divide their attention. Their anti-fighter batteries engaged the small craft, but that meant fewer weapons firing at the human capital ships. And the human capital ships did not waste the opportunity. Railguns fired metal slugs at incredible speeds. At near-light velocity, even a small piece of metal became a devastating weapon. The slugs punched through Krithian shields and armor. They created massive holes in the alien ships. Nuclear-pumped lasers burned at maximum power. These were not the simple lasers the Krithians expected. These were weapons designed to cut through starship armor. They carved glowing lines across the hulls of enemy vessels. The battle became chaos. The organized Krithian formation fell apart. Individual ships tried to retreat, but the human fleet was everywhere. They moved with precision and coordination that should have been impossible for such a newly united force. What the Krithians did not understand was that these were not just any crews. These were the best military personnel from every nation on Earth. Americans who had trained for decades. Russians with centuries of military tradition. Chinese officers who had studied the ancient art of war. Europeans who understood combined arms tactics. They brought all of human military knowledge to this battle. And humanity had learned something the Krithians never had. Humans knew how to lose. They had lost thousands of battles throughout history. They had studied their defeats. They had learned from their mistakes, and that experience made them better warriors than species who had never tasted defeat. Another Krithian cruiser exploded, then another, and another. The human fleet was systematically destroying the invasion force, not through superior technology, but through superior tactics. Jothik stared at his tactical display. In less than an hour, he had lost 15 ships. 15. The humans had lost only 3. This was not how it was supposed to happen. The Krithians were the masters of war. The Krithians were the conquerors. How were they losing to these primitives? Commander, his tactical officer said quietly, we cannot win this battle. We should retreat. Call for reinforcements. Retreat. The word tasted like poison in Jothik's mouth. A Krithian commander did not retreat. A Krithian commander won or died trying. But he was not just a warrior. He was a leader, and his duty was to his crew, to his fleet, to his species. Send the retreat signal, he said finally. All ships fall back to the outer system. We regroup and, Commander, the humans are blocking our retreat path. Admiral Kata had anticipated the retreat. He had positioned ships to cut off every escape route. The Krithians were surrounded, trapped, exactly where he wanted them. Kata opened a direct channel to the Eternal Blade. Commander Jothik, your fleet is broken. Your invasion has failed. You have 2 choices. Surrender or die. Choose quickly. I do not have all day. Jothik looked around his bridge. His crew looked back at him. They were scared. They were defeated. They were waiting for him to save them. The surrender did not mean the battle was over. Not completely. Jothik had given the order, but not all Krithian ships obeyed immediately. Some captains saw surrender as dishonor. They chose to fight to the death. One heavy cruiser, the Blood Honor, turned its weapons on the nearest human ships. Its captain broadcast a final message. I am Captain Vorthax. I will not surrender to primitives. I will die as a warrior should. Remember my name. The Blood Honor fought alone against 10 human warships. It destroyed 2 of them before it was finally overwhelmed. Vorthax and his crew died as they had lived, fighting until the very end. The humans respected that. They mourned their lost comrades but understood the Crithian captain's choice. Another ship, a destroyer, tried to escape. It broke formation and activated its faster-than-light drive. But Lieutenant Amy Chen, daughter of Commander Chen Wei, who had died in the first battle, was ready. Her squadron of fighters pursued the destroyer. They damaged its engines before it could jump. The destroyer drifted helplessly, then surrendered. "For my mother," Amy whispered as she watched the destroyer go dark. "This one was for you." By the time the sun rose over Earth, the battle was truly over. Of the 50 Crithian ships, 43 had been destroyed or disabled. 7 had surrendered intact. The human fleet had lost 35 ships. Thousands of crew members had died. But Earth was safe. Admiral Keita stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked at Earth on his screen. The blue planet had never looked more beautiful. They had done it. Against a superior enemy, against impossible odds, humanity had won. "Admiral," Commander Liu said quietly. "What now?" "Now," Keita replied, "we send a message. Not just to the Crithians, to everyone out there. To every species that might think humanity is easy prey." He turned to the communication officer. "Open a channel. Wide broadcast. I want this message to reach every corner of the galaxy." The channel opened. Keita's message would be transmitted through the captured Crithian ships, through Earth satellites, through every available frequency. Within days it would reach the Crithian homeworld. Within weeks it would spread to other civilizations. "This is Admiral Marcus Keita of the United Earth Defense Fleet," he began. "To the Crithian sovereignty and to all who might be listening. You came to our home as conquerors. You looked at our world and saw weakness. You saw our divisions, our conflicts, our struggles. You thought these made us easy victims." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You were wrong. Our conflicts made us strong. Every war we fought taught us lessons. Every battle showed us new ways to survive. We have spent 10,000 years learning how to fight, not against aliens, against ourselves. And that made us better warriors than you could imagine." In the cargo bay of the Defiance, Crithian prisoners listened to the message. Jothik stood among them. He understood now. The humans had not been divided. They had been training. All those wars, all that bloodshed, all those centuries of conflict had created the greatest military machine in the galaxy, not through technology but through experience. "We did not conquer the stars because we were too busy conquering ourselves," Keita continued. "But that ends today.
Humanity is united now.
We have seen what happens when we work together, and we will never go back to the way things were." On Earth, people gathered in the streets. They listened to the Admiral's words on giant screens. They held each other and cried tears of relief and joy. They had survived. More than survived. They had won. "Let this be a warning," Keita said. "Humanity is no longer confined to one world. We are no longer prey. If you come to us in peace, we will welcome you. If you come to us in friendship, we will be your allies. But if you come to us as enemies, you will face the full might of humanity. And you will lose." The message ended. Silence filled the bridge of the Defiance. Then slowly the crew began to applaud. It started with one person, then spread until everyone was clapping. They had witnessed something incredible. The birth of humanity as a true spacefaring civilization. The Crithian sovereignty received the message 3 days later. The council gathered to watch it. When it finished, nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Councillor Vexthar broke the silence. "We have made a grave error," he said. "We attacked a sleeping giant, and we woke it up. What do you propose?" asked another councillor. "Peace," Vexthar said simply. "Immediate peace. We offer them everything. Technology, resources, territory, whatever they want. Because if we do not make peace, they will bring war to us. And I do not think we can win that war." The council voted. The decision was unanimous. They would seek peace with humanity. They would offer reparations for the invasion. They would share their technology and knowledge. Anything to avoid another conflict with these terrifying humans. A delegation was sent to Earth. Jothik was part of it. He was the face of the failed invasion. He would have to answer for his mistakes. But he accepted this duty. He had learned something valuable, even if the lesson had been painful. The delegation arrived at Earth 6 months after the battle. In that time, humanity had not been idle. The captured Crithian ships were being studied. Human engineers were learning alien technology. New weapons were being developed. New ships were being built. The meeting took place in the ruins of the International Space Station. Admiral Kata had insisted on this location. He wanted the Crithians to see what they had destroyed. He wanted them to remember what they had done. Jothik looked at the twisted metal and shattered solar panels. This had been a symbol of human achievement. His forces had destroyed it in minutes. Now it was a monument to human resilience. They had rebuilt parts of it. They were making it functional again. Admiral Kata, Jothik said formally, I come as a representative of the Crithian sovereignty. We wish to offer terms of peace. I am listening, Kata replied. Jothik presented the terms. A non-aggression pact, technology exchange, reparations for the damage caused, the release of all prisoners, and most importantly, a promise to share what had happened with every other species in the galaxy. Why would you share this story? Kata asked. It makes your people look weak. Because, Jothik said, it will prevent others from making the same mistake. Let everyone know what happened here. Let them know that humanity is not to be trifled with. It will save lives. Theirs and yours. Kata considered the terms. They were generous. Almost too generous. The Crithians were genuinely afraid. That was good. Fear would keep them honest. I accept these terms, Kata said. But I have one condition of my own. What condition? When you tell this story, you tell all of it. Not just the battle. Tell them about Commander Chen, who sacrificed herself and her crew. Tell them about Maria Santos and the resistance fighters. Tell them about the millions of humans who refused to surrender. Tell them that we did not win because we had better ships. We won because we had something you did not. What was that? Jothik asked. The will to survive, Kata said. You came to conquer. We fought to live. That made all the difference. Jothik nodded slowly. He understood. The humans had not just defeated his fleet. They had taught him a lesson that would echo through the ages. A lesson about underestimating your enemy. A lesson about the difference between fighting for glory and fighting for survival. Before Jothik left, he asked one final question. Admiral Kata, how many more fleets do you have? How many ships can humanity field if there is another war? Kata smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who knows he has won. Would you like to find out? Jothik did not answer. He did not need to. The message was clear. Humanity had more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. They had been preparing for this for years. The Exodus fleet was just the beginning. As the Crithian delegation returned to their ship, Jothik looked back at Earth one last time. The blue planet hung in space, beautiful and deadly, a world that had nearly been destroyed but had survived through strength and unity. He thought about his initial assessment. Soft creatures who only knew how to fight their own kind. How wrong he had been. These humans were not soft. They were hardened steel, forged in the fires of countless wars. They were not primitives. They were survivors, and now they were unleashed upon the galaxy. Jothik felt a chill run through his body. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived. And they had arrived ready for war. On Earth, construction continued. New shipyards at Jupiter, more weapons facilities on Mars, training centers on the Moon. Humanity was not stopping. They had won one battle, but they knew more would come. Other species would test them. Other empires would threaten them. But humanity was ready now, united, determined, strong. They had learned the most important lesson of all. Together they were unstoppable. Admiral Kata returned to his quarters after the meeting. He was tired. The weight of command was heavy. But he felt satisfaction. They had protected Earth. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not prey. He looked at a picture on his desk. His family. His wife and 2 children. They were safe now. Everyone on Earth was safe. That was worth all the sacrifices. That was worth everything. A message came through on his communicator. It was from General Hayes on Earth. Admiral, we have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected another alien fleet approaching from a different sector. They are not Crithian. We do not know what they want. 5 years passed after the Crithian invasion. 5 years that changed humanity forever. 5 years that changed the galaxy. The story of Earth's victory spread across the stars. It traveled from system to system, carried by traders and diplomats. Every species heard about the humans who had defeated the mighty Crithian sovereignty. Some found it hard to believe. Others found it terrifying. The Crithians, true to their word, shared everything. They sent detailed reports of the battle. They provided tactical analysis. They explained how humanity had won through superior strategy and determination. The report concluded with a warning that echoed through the galactic community. Do not underestimate humanity. They appear divided, but they unite when threatened. They appear primitive, but they learn quickly. They appear weak, but they are survivors. Engage them at your own risk. The warning saved lives. Several aggressive species decided not to test Earth's defenses. They had no wish to become the next example of human military power. Instead, they approached Earth carefully, offering trade and alliance. Humanity became known by many names across the galaxy. The Crithians called them the patient predators, a species that had spent millennia preparing without knowing what they were preparing for. Other species had different names: the United Tribes, the Warborn, the Survivors. But the most common name, the one that spread the furthest, was simple: humans, just that one word. And it carried weight now. It carried respect, sometimes fear, always caution. On Earth, the changes were even more dramatic. The unity forged in the fire of invasion did not fade. Nations that had been enemies for centuries became true partners. The United Nations transformed from a political forum into a genuine world government. It was not perfect. There were still disagreements, still arguments, still cultural differences. But now, when humans looked at their disputes, they remembered the Crithians. They remembered what could happen if they were divided. And they chose cooperation over conflict. The military expansion continued. Admiral Keita oversaw the construction of the second human armada. This one was even larger than the first. 500 ships, better weapons, stronger shields, faster engines. Humanity was not taking any chances, but humanity also invested in exploration and diplomacy. They sent out peaceful expeditions to make contact with other species. They established trade routes. They shared their own technology in exchange for alien knowledge. They showed the galaxy that humans could be more than warriors. Maria Santos, the resistance fighter from São Paulo, became an ambassador. Her story had inspired millions during the invasion. Now she used that influence to build bridges between humanity and alien civilizations. She traveled to distant worlds, spoke at galactic councils, and advocated for peace. We did not fight the Crithians because we wanted war, she told an assembly of alien delegates. We fought because we wanted to live. We want peace, but we will never again be helpless. We will never again be victims. Lieutenant Amy Chen, who had avenged her mother's death, became one of humanity's top fighter pilots. She trained new pilots in the tactics that had won the war. She taught them not just how to fly and fight, but why they fought. To protect home, to preserve freedom, to ensure survival. My mother died defending Earth, she told her students. She bought us time with her sacrifice, time that allowed the Exodus fleet to arrive. Never forget that. Every second you buy in combat might be the second that saves everything. Commander Jathic, surprisingly, became an advisor to the human military. After the peace treaty, he had requested political asylum on Earth. The sovereignty had wanted to execute him for his failure. Humanity offered him protection in exchange for his knowledge. Why help us? Admiral Keita had asked when Jathic made his request. We destroyed your fleet. We humiliated your people. You taught me something valuable, Jathic replied. The sovereignty believed in domination. You believe in survival. Your way is better. Your way leads to progress. I want to be part of that. Jathic became one of humanity's most valuable resources. He provided detailed information about the Crithian sovereignty. He explained their tactics, their technology, their political structure. More importantly, he shared information about other species in the galaxy, which ones were dangerous, which ones were friendly, which ones humanity should approach with caution. The galaxy is more complex than you realize, he told a gathering of human military officers. There are empires that make the sovereignty look small. There are species with technology beyond your imagination. You won one battle. Do not become arrogant. Keep learning. Keep preparing. The humans took his advice seriously. They established research centers dedicated to studying alien technology. They created diplomatic schools to teach people how to interact with non-human species. They built a vast intelligence network that monitored events across multiple star systems. At Jupiter, the shipyard had grown into the largest construction facility in the solar system. Thousands of workers from dozens of nations labored together. They built warships and cargo vessels, defense platforms and exploration ships. Everything humanity needed to survive and thrive in the galaxy. Admiral Keita, older now and showing gray in his beard, walked through the shipyard during an inspection. He looked at the massive vessels taking shape in the zero-gravity construction bays. Each one represented years of work. Each one was a promise that humanity would never be caught unprepared again. Beautiful, are they not? Commander Liu said, walking beside him. She had been promoted to Vice Admiral and served as Keita's second-in-command for the entire fleet now. They are necessary, Keita replied. Beauty has nothing to do with it. Do you think we will need them? Will there be another war? Keita was quiet for a moment. I hope not. I truly hope not. But hope is not a strategy. We must be ready, always. They continued walking until they reached an observation deck. From there they could see Earth in the distance. A small blue marble against the black of space. Home. Everything they fought for could be summed up in that one beautiful planet. The Krithians made one critical mistake, Keita said. They saw our history and assumed it made us weak. All those wars, all that conflict, all that bloodshed. They thought we were divided and broken. But it made us strong, Liu finished. Exactly. Every war taught us something. Every conflict refined our tactics. Every battle made us better. We were not wasting time fighting each other. We were training, preparing for the day when we would face a real threat. And now? Liu asked. Now we take those lessons to the stars, Keita said. We explore. We build, we defend. And if anyone threatens us again, we remind them why you should never underestimate humanity. Far across the galaxy, in a council chamber on a world whose name humans did not yet know, a gathering was taking place. Representatives from a dozen species sat around a circular table. They were discussing the newest power in their region of space. Earth, humanity. Should we be concerned? Asked one delegate, a tall being with crystalline skin. The Krithians were concerned, replied another. Look what happened to them. The humans have not made any aggressive moves, said a third. They respond to approaches with diplomacy. They trade fairly. They have been peaceful. But they keep building warships, the first delegate pointed out. Their military grows every cycle. What are they preparing for? An old delegate, a being who had lived for 300 cycles, spoke for the first time. They are preparing for us. For anyone who might threaten them. The humans learned a lesson from the Krithian invasion. They will never be weak again. We should not see this as a threat. We should see it as a fact. And we should adjust our policies accordingly. What do you suggest? Friendship, the old delegate said simply. Approach them with respect. Trade with them honestly. Never threaten them. And if a crisis comes, remember that having humans as allies is far better than having them as enemies. The council agreed. A delegation would be sent to Earth. Offers of alliance would be made. Humanity would be welcomed into the wider galactic community. Not as primitives or victims, but as equals. Back on Earth in the rebuilt United Nations headquarters, the Secretary General received the message. Multiple alien species wanted to open diplomatic relations. They wanted to trade. They wanted to share technology. They wanted to be friends. The Secretary General smiled. 5 years ago, humanity had been alone and afraid. Now they were respected and sought after. The Krithian invasion, as terrible as it had been, had given humanity something precious. Unity, purpose, and a place among the stars. Send replies to all of them, the Secretary General ordered. Tell them we welcome their friendship. Tell them we look forward to peaceful cooperation. And tell them that Earth stands ready to be a good neighbor and a strong ally. The messages were sent. The future was bright, but humanity did not forget the lessons of the past. The shipyards continued to build. The military continued to train. The intelligence network continued to watch, because humanity had learned the most important lesson of all. Peace was wonderful, but survival required strength, and humanity would never again be caught unprepared. Admiral Keita stood in his office years later, looking at the wall of memories. Pictures of fallen comrades, Commander Chen Wei, the crew of the Shanghai, Lieutenant Yuki from the Tokyo Defense,